Hello again, you lovely football fans, and welcome back to the Bet It Right show on the eve of Christmas in conjunction with betitright.com. BetItRight.com is a brand new website that brings the football data to your door, and each week we'll update you on the key numbers and metrics that you can use to help you show off in front of your mates and allow you to bet better. Like and subscribe to this podcast and make sure you get involved with us at betitright.com. Well, the good news is that the Boxing Day fixtures are scheduled to go ahead after a meeting involving the Premier League clubs. And once again, Dean Selvey joins me to look ahead to the fixtures that are coming your way. And last week we talked about Ajax getting the purist purring. Well, Dean on the show last week got the punters purring with some inspired selections. That was my Christmas tongue twister, dealt with at the start. We're all dressed up in our Christmas clobber. Happy Christmas, Dean. And we thankfully have some football to look forward to this festive period.
We do. And hello, Ollie. And Merry Christmas to everybody, wherever you're watching this, whatever day it is. As you can see, I am one of those people that swallows Christmas and it comes out of every pore. And this isn't just for the show. This is basically how I'm going to look for the next 2 weeks. Oh,
I love it. You know, we chatted about favourite Christmas films on the show last week. We missed out a key one, which Barbato Salve got in touch with us and said Santa the Claus was his favourite Christmas film. I was thinking about favourite Christmas songs as well. We're hearing a lot of Christmas songs in the shops. For anyone that's going out into shops, they're doing their last minute Christmas shopping. What's your number one Christmas song?
That's so much pressure. Now I could go down the traditional route. You know, in my head I've got Christmas, and I've got a few Mariah Carey's knocking about. And I can see Bublé doing his thing, Mickey Bubbles, as we like to call him in England. But I'm going to have to go for E17, Stay Another Day.
Inspired shout from you, that, to be fair. Yeah, wow.
Because at the time that song was out, I was walking around basically looking like, the reject. I was like East 18, the one that didn't get in, like wrong direction.
I thought you were going to say you were walking around looking like Brian Harvey, who I think once run himself over.
He did, but that was only because he'd eaten too much jacket potato with tuna and needed to be sick out of his car door and then ran himself over, which I still can't understand.
Every time I read that story, I go, that just didn't happen, but it definitely did.
Well, the moral of the story is just have a small jacket potato and maybe just one tin of tuna.
Or don't ever get in a car with Brian Harvey. Well, good. Well, we've covered the important stuff already. Favourite Christmas song. I'm in full agreement with you about the film and the song. We're similar people, Dean. I love it.
We are, but I don't think you've gone all the way to Bergamo to get your Christmas jumper. A shout out to Gianpiero Gasparini and all the guys at Atalanta for my Christmas jumper. As you can see, it's a little whatever it is.
Stand up.
A little reindeer with a little hat on. We're good.
Why do you keep sort of half standing up and then sitting down? Are you not wearing trousers?
No, I've always got trousers on, but they may just be a little bit too Christmassy. I don't think the Bet It Right users could cope with it. I've built a 5% reputation in the first 3 shows, and I'm just going to blow it out of the water right now if I reveal these horrendous Christmas trousers that I've got right now.
We asked for score predictions back to the serious business yesterday of the. We're obviously recording this on Tuesday morning, gives us plenty of run up into the Boxing Day fixtures. But we asked the score predictions on Monday night's championship game, Fulham versus Sheffield United, who we've discussed, both teams actually, on previous podcasts. The correct score was 1-0 to Sheffield United. No one actually got that right, but Gary Sinclair, were it not for Mitrovic hitting the post in the 94th minute, would have got his third correct score correct because he went for 1-1. It's remarkable the run he's on. I know he just missed out, but it probably should have finished 1-1, really. Mitrovic's touch in the last minute was terrible and had to cut back inside and things like that. And then Harry Wilson missed a sitter in his own right. But anyway, well done, Gary. Keep that up. You're definitely our Christmas winner of the score predictions so far. And in the new year, we will, as promised, have those prizes. So tell everyone, get involved. And we look forward to hearing from you on our BIR Insights page in 2022. And both BIR Insights and BIR Prompts are must-follow accounts for all your Christmas bets. Dean, are you ready? With your Christmas hat and your Christmas jumper and your Christmas tree by you, are you ready for some Christmas football previews?
I am. My Christmas trousers, my Christmas underpants. My Santa's sack is full of tips and tricks to get the punters purring. Let's go.
Well, the first game we're going to take a look at is Spurs versus Palace, a couple of London teams taking each other on. And Spurs, they looked pretty good against Liverpool. I think the Spurs fans were certainly very encouraged by what they saw. What did you make of it, Dean?
Yeah, agreed. The 2-week break looked like it did him a world of good, looked very fresh. Harry Kane doing his best kind of Tom Daly impression in reverse. Not really sure how he didn't get a red, but hey-ho.
He got the ball, mate. He got the ball.
Yeah. I don't know. I actually, by the way, I just said hey-ho, but that wasn't actually a Christmas joke. It was just, I'm infected with Christmas. Forget COVID.
I couldn't believe when he said in the interview he got the ball. I mean, that was just utter nonsense. Anyway.
Yeah. No, but yeah, looking a lot better.
I suppose it's always with these teams that have had these long breaks, whether they're fresh or whether if their squad's been ravaged with COVID, I don't really know how they'd feel coming back and playing. But it certainly seemed in Tottenham's case that the break did them good. But not only that, they're also, as you flagged up before, signs from Conte and the way he sets up that he's going to get the team playing football again.
Yeah, and it's another game where they averaged kind of low possession. It's been below 50% every game. It's clear that he wants to try and be explosive, using Davies and Reguilon to kind of release on the left and Son to use that pace, which will be an interesting one against Palace. Son against Ward and Anderson, potential exposure there. Spurs will look to play in those inside pockets, in their 3-4-2-1. And with Palace playing a 4-3-3, their sitting midfielder, who was Will Hughes in the last game, can sometimes be a little bit exposed because he's not that mobile. He keeps the game ticking over, but if he has to cover big spaces, those Spurs inverted forwards in their 3-4-2-1, 3-4-3 could be a real area that Conte looks to expose.
Because of what you were saying about the way they set up Spurs, are those wing backs, Reguilon and Emerson Royal or whoever plays in that role, have they become more important to the team than they were before under previous managers?
Yeah, anyone that plays under Conte, the wing backs are massively important. He seems to favour the left at the moment, with the left centre half releasing more. So Davies will be the one that adds the number in midfield. So that side, the right side, could be an area where Palace target in transition. And on the flip side, Palace's 4-3-3, expansive, progressive possession under Vieira looks very good. Conor Gallagher adding an extra number in the 10 to be more advanced. And Will Zaha, if he can get himself 1v1 against Davinson Sanchez, could be another area for exposure. So I'd expect Tottenham will allow Palace to dominate the ball, will look to sit in, look to counter-attack. It should be a game with lots of flow, lots of good tempo in possession. Neither team really like to build slow. So if Spurs can break, give the ball away, Palace can break, give the ball away, Spurs will break, give the ball away. So it could be one of those games that actually really opens up.
A bit ping-pongy.
A bit, yeah. Yeah, it could be one of those games where, it's like, right, who's eating the most Christmas pudding? It'll be that guy there who's really slow in transition, and you'll see the guys that have kind of laid off the prawn cocktail starter and they're flying. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It's actually, I know you're joking there, but in the world that I'm used to, jockeys, footballers, whilst we're indulging in things on Christmas Day, athletes who are riding on Boxing Day, playing football on Boxing Day, probably don't get that luxury. Some of them are staying in hotels and what have you. So for this game, you'd assume that most of the Palace players are able to enjoy Christmas at home, but that will be a good fixture. What's the bet in that game, do you think?
So looking at the data, Spurs have been very positive in their, in the last 4 games at home, averaging 2.8 goals from 1.62 XG. 6 out of 9 home games have been over 2.5, which is number 1 in the league. Palace's 5 out of 8 games away from home has been over 2.5. Their outputs aren't great, only 1.04 goals. So I'd look at this and say that Spurs' front 3 versus Palace's front 3 is going to be the key battle, and I put my weight towards Spurs' front 3 winning that battle. And I'd like a little double here. I'd like to go Spurs and over 2.5 for a little Christmas cracker.
Right. Love it. Moving on, West Ham versus Southampton. And I think the data is interesting on this one because it might paint a slightly different picture to what you expect. Would that be fair?
Yeah, this is an interesting fixture. Just the way that Hasenhüttl was set up against West Ham in the past. The last 3 games, it's been a 0-0, a 0-0 and a 3-0, the 3-0 being a dead rubber at the end of last season when it was May and West Ham getting into Europe and Southampton nothing to play for. But what Hasenhüttl's done against West Ham in recent times is pack the midfield, played really narrow like a 4-2-2-2, try and get numbers up and stop West Ham from playing in those central areas. And it'll be really key for West Ham to almost evade that, to play outside the pitch first, then play back on the inside of the pitch and try to kind of manage that space. And Southampton recently went really aggressive against Arsenal. Leicester kind of got undone on the counter-attack against Arsenal when it was very open against Leicester. So this game is one where the data points towards it being quite open, but this is really one where Hasenhüttl could sit down and think, right, we've been leaking a few goals recently. Let's go and be a little bit more conservative and try and stop West Ham from doing what they want to do. So it's really an interesting one that people can go on the Bennett Wright website, look at the data, look at the 2 teams, look at West Ham's attacking outputs at home, which is over 1.8 goals a game from over 1.5 XG. They give up some good numbers, over 1.3, 1.37 on both sides of the ball. But the big question is Southampton. They haven't managed to find that goal scorer.
I was going to ask you, because FPL players are sort of in the conundrum as well. Does he know who his best lineup is for that? Because Bro just played Armstrong, Che Adams, Nathan Redmond's played up top. Like, what's the answer to that?
I think he's still trying to figure it out. And I think going from game to game, he's tweaking and he's testing and he's seeing what works. Like you said, Broja's the top scorer with 4 goals. And if you want to be anywhere from the middle to the higher echelons of the Premier League, you need to have someone in your team that's scoring more than 4 goals. And that replacement of Danny Ings has been kind of key. And, they didn't change versus Arsenal. They went high press. They got exposed on the counter. They play best against teams that, they can get behind, get down the sides, be aggressive, but they need teams to come onto them. And that's shown in the Leicester Palace games. So, if West Ham sit, it's a little bit slower tempo that won't really suit Southampton. And it could become a game where it becomes a real tactical battle, this one.
Okay. Again, when taking that all into account, despite the numbers, how you expect them to set up, therefore, are you going probably against market expectation and thinking it might be an overs game, or both teams to score game, and are you going actually against that approach, given historical scorelines in the past between these 2 teams?
Yeah, well, West Ham, both teams to score 7 out of 8 at home, number 1 in the league. Southampton giving up almost 2 goals a game away from home from 1.5 XG. And Southampton, 7 out of 9 games have been over 2.5 when they've been away from home, including the last 4. So if you looked at that and you were on the website and you were kind of doing your little notes of the weekend, or should I say on Boxing Day, and your brain's a bit clouded by, all the celebrations you've eaten, and you kind of think, I can't see through the wrapping paper. It is a game where you could get caught up in the goals. But with Ralph Hasenhüttl's attitude to this game in the past and how he may need to tweak it to stop West Ham getting their 10s, their 10 on the pocket on the game and trying to get 1v1 in wide areas, this could be a game where actually you look at potentially going unders and both teams to score on the no and saying, well, this could be a game that at 1-0, does it really open up, or, do the 2 managers look at the tactical battles that have happened in recent years, repeat that, and we have something that kind of goes against data for once, which is something that we haven't really talked about on the show so far.
Certainly food for thought, that. West Ham versus Southampton coming up on Boxing Day. Game 3 for us to look at now, Dean, is Burnley versus Everton. And I guess given the team that Everton had to put out against Chelsea, and they sort of got a brilliant draw against Chelsea, team news is probably going to be vital for what happens in terms of bets and how you approach this, I assume.
Yeah, I heard a rumour that I was next on Rafa's speed dial.
No.
He was scrambling. He was like, let's get an early 40-something centre forward. And I played at Goodison Park before, as you might not know that. And I've actually scored at Goodison Park. I have it on DVD.
At what level?
That's not important, the level. It's just the question is, have you scored at Goodison Park? The answer to that is yes.
The other thing is, Rafa's got you on speed dial to ring you up to slag you off for actually being a Liverpool fan, as previously discussed on this podcast.
Anyway, moving on to the Burnley game. Yeah, the team that they played against Chelsea, it was a great draw. Really proud of the younger players that came in as a true Evertonian that we all know. I'm wearing Everton colours today. It's got the Atalanta badge on, but Rafa, don't worry about that. Everton Christmas jumpers was sold out. Yeah, it really comes down to the team. Everton's injuries, really missing Gray and Townsend. Gray was missing from the squad. No one really knows why. Townsend with a foot injury, Richarlison out, Calvert-Lewin obviously been out for a long time. They had 19% possession against Chelsea, which tells you everything, 19%. You know, a defensive 5-4-1. Rafa recognised that they were going to be the second best team, and he sat in. And on the flip side, for Burnley, it's really about whether Maxwell Cornet's fit. They've had he's had rest. They had the game postponed for COVID. So if he's in the team and Everton have a few players back, then it paints a different picture. But right now, it's going to be a bit of a war of attrition, I think, up there at Turf Moor.
Any bets in this?
Do you like the way that I rolled in War of Attrition then as one of my favourite horses of all time?
Well, see, one, I suppose you must have backed him in the Gold Cup, right? For him.
I did. Yeah, absolutely.
And two, it's a relatively common phrase. So I didn't instantly associate horse with. Do you know what I mean? I
do, but I've got my Christmas sack here.
I really appreciate it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not ungrateful, but I didn't go, wow, that's a great horse reference. If you put in Frankel in a sentence that made sense that wasn't horse related, I'd go smart. Right,
now you've got a really small part of my brain working on Frankel, how I can get it in to the podcast now you won't be before the end.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Okay.
Any bets in this?
Well, Burnley typically haven't really changed for the last 5 years. Hard working, chuck the ball in behind, want Cornet on the counter-attack. If he's injured, it's a real problem for them. Tarkowski and me, mobility-wise, can be exposed by Everton, but only if they've got their best players and the players that can actually attack the space down the sides. Everton play best on the counter-attack, so I expect them to allow Burnley to have the ball here. They'll probably have a little bit more of the ball than they usually do. And Burnley can't really defend the counter-attack, but again, like I said, it's really down to who Everton have available. At 1-0, don't really see the game exploding. Everton, with the injuries, will be happy to get out of there with a win. And I think Burnley, with the run that they're on, they'll be looking to squeeze, the game as early as they can and make Everton struggle for it. So when you look into some of the data, Burnley have the fewest shots in the Premier League with 48, which is joint with Norwich. Only 3 of their 7 home games have been, had over 2.5 goals. And with the Everton injuries and their outputs away from home, which is 0.82 goals, this is a game where I would say we'd be looking at the unders market, under 2.5 goals, as a game that really just doesn't get going. And I'm just going to throw a little kind of random one in there as well. Burnley have almost 5.6 corners a game. Everton have the lowest corners in the Premier League away from home at 2.55. And Burnley also have kind of 0.7 cards more than Everton. So if punters were thinking, I want a little bit more bang for my buck and I want to make a bit more money over this festive period, then potentially under 2.5 and maybe throw in Burnley, most corners and most cards as well for a little outsider just to boost the odds on this one.
Okay, looking ahead to a couple of fixtures now in the Championship. And the first one we're going to take a look at, Dean, is Hull against Blackburn, who are on, well, probably the hottest team in Europe right now. Blackburn, they're flying.
Yeah, Ben Brereton Diaz, people chatting about him now being worth £25 million. It's amazing what a few goals in England can do for your price.
Yeah. He's like a cult hero in South America though, isn't he?
He is now. Yeah. Going over to the Copa America, doing well. Now he's Ben Brereton Diaz rocking around at Blackburn, 19 goals and 1 assist. Number 2 in the league for that. Contract up in the summer, so they're thinking that maybe he leaves in January. Can Tony Mowbray make him stay? So it's a really interesting one.
I should know this, but is he from like up north and just added Diaz to his name because he realised he had like a South American great granddad or something?
No, but I believe it's his grandma that's from
Does he have a northern accent?
But he was originally at Forest. I'm not sure about where he came through the academy, but that's where he kind of made his name when he was playing for England under 21s. But yeah, a great story for him. Pardon?
I just love the thought of him around Christmas one day going, like his dad going, "Hey up, Ben. You know, Grandad used to play Chile." He goes, "What?" off he goes. And then he becomes this sort of genius striker. I'm going to find out. I'm going to Google Ben Brereton Diaz. I should have done this before whilst you tell us what's going to happen in the game against Hull. I'm assuming you think Blackburn are going to win that.
Well, yeah, so Blackburn last 10 games, 25 points, 20 goals, 10 conceded. Top of the form table for the last 5 and the last 10 games. Hull no winning 3 after a 4-game winning streak. So Grant McCann is really kind of flip-flopping with Hull. They're going from an aggressive team to a passive team. But he's gone more aggressive at home. And Lewis Potter's been key to their attacking in wide areas. An excellent 1v1 player. Great delivery, great finishing, a player that's bound to end up in the Premier League, very soon. Blackburn, quite passive away from home, will look to allow Hull to dominate the ball and break at pace. Joe Rothwell's passes through to Brereton Diaz in the space behind will be key. And it's a good style matchup because both teams play 3-4-1-2. So it'll be interesting to see whether Grant McCann goes for this more aggressive Hull approach at home, which he's done recently. But their outputs are pretty low, only 0.92 goals from 1.19 XG. Defensively, they don't give up much, 1.17 from 1.1 XG. Blackburn have been really solid at home, over 2 goals a game. Away from home, only 1.07. So they're another team that have struggled to transfer that home form away. But this is a game where, looking through all the data, I sat there and did a bit of research, as I do every week. And I came up with a little bet builder. So this is where I'm going to go with this one. Blackburn to win. Blackburn with most cards. They have an average of 2.22 cards a game, whereas Hull are on 1.33. And they've had over 3.5 match cards in 8 of their 11 games. So I'm going to go Blackburn win, Blackburn most cards. Hull have not almost twice, but 5 corners against Blackburn's 2.96. And Hull have had over 7.5 corners in 9 of their 11 games. So the first 3 parts of this bet builder is a Blackburn win, Blackburn most cards, Hull most corners. And then if you wanted to be really bumper and think, right, I've got a big New Year's Eve coming, I need a few extra £100 in my pocket, then you could also go over 3.5 match cards and over 7.5 match corners for a 5-leg bumper bet builder, Boxing Day bonanza. Anything else that I can do with bees for Blackburn? There you go.
Brilliant. Black Beauty. Do you remember Black Beauty, the horse? Barton. Do you know who my favourite horse was actually? Speaking of alliteration with the word bee, Barton Bank was my favourite horse.
Barton Bank.
He actually fell in the King George, which is on Boxing Day, obviously, as everyone knows. Yeah,
in my 20s and 30s, mainly in my 20s, late 20s, early 30s, I was huge into horse racing, like obsessed. My office at work, I used to work for a law firm before I got into football. There's a little, teaser for the watchers of Bet It Right. Where did this man come from? And I was into it, and my desk would just be covered in papers, and I'd be obsessed with kind of horses and trainers and everything. So, yeah. But it's football for me these days.
Well, we're glad that it is. You're incredibly informative on the Bet It Right show, so we're grateful for that. And thankfully for me, I don't have to talk about racing on here because I spend most of my Christmas talking about racing on ITV. I've done my research. Brereton was born in Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire, and attended Blythe Bridge High School.
Is that how people in Stoke talk?
I think so. Hang on, just got it confirmed. That is exactly how they talk. He was born to Martin Brereton, an English policeman and former amateur football player in the Potteries and District Sunday League. And Andrea née Diaz, born in Concepcion, Chile, who works at Churchill, China. So Andrea, his mother, is where he is Chilean links. So what a story that is. That's the first game in the Championship looked at with a big bet builder. Next game, Middlesbrough versus Forest. And again, another team on a bit of a roll.
Yeah, well, both teams, Middlesbrough, since Chris Wilde has gone in, they look like Sheffield United Part 2. And Forest under Steve Cooper have been magnificent. He took over 21st of September. They've lost 1 game in 15 against Fulham, unbeaten in the last 8 away. And Chris Wilde has been in post since the 7th of November. They've lost 1 in 6 against Preston. And in true Sheffield United style, with a pillow and a little bit of cowpole, their last 3 games have been 1-0, 0-0, and 1-0. So he's having the true Sheffield United effect. But yeah, two teams in good form. Middlesbrough have won the last 3 meetings between these teams, and a game that will pitch two of the kind of, I guess, the best performing managers at the moment in what should be a really intriguing game.
What's the angle?
Well, they play kind of similar systems. Middlesbrough 3 at the back, Forest 3 at the back. Middlesbrough 5 in midfield, so 3-5-2, and Forest play a 3-4-3. So that small overload in midfield could be key for Middlesbrough, which is where they've been really good. So Crooks, Tavernier and Johnny Howson sitting in the deeper line position. So that 3 versus 2 in there, it's helped them really thrive in that system for Middlesbrough. They'll have lots of the ball. That extra man can help them progress up the pitch. But what they're going to have to worry about is Forest in transition. Under Cooper, they've been excellent on the counter-attack. Johnson in behind, potentially exposing the space that's left by Isaiah Jones for Middlesbrough, who likes to advance. So this could be a real kind of cat and mouse game. Middlesbrough dominating the ball, Forest looking to get in behind. Middlesbrough have only conceded 0.91 goals so far this season at home from 0.86 XG, so very tight. And Forest, again, have conceded only 0.75 goals away from home, number 2 in the league, from 1.1 XG. So this is a game I expect to be tight. On the handicap, I think Forest could actually go off on a plus. So if those people that aren't really aware of the handicap system or the Asian lines and want to do a little bit of research, potentially look into that. Look to bet in Forest on the plus handicap, and even taking Forest on the draw no bet market would be a good bet here. And also on the goals, if an under 2.5 market's available at a good price, I would definitely be that side, because I think this game is one that at 1-0, the team shut up shop and they look for the win.
Normally at this stage, we do a Euro roundup, an update on news and things around Europe. Not an awful lot's happened in truth. And also there are games both tonight and tomorrow. So it would be relatively futile to do that if you're listening to this over the Christmas period. So what I'd like to do, given the announcement from the government today in Wales that fixtures in Wales, sport fixtures will be behind closed doors, and what potentially could happen after Christmas, preemptive perhaps. And that is regarding sporting fixtures carrying on behind closed doors or without fans or reduced capacity crowds. I'd like, if you can, just explain to our listeners and viewers about what the data tells us about a couple of key things that are factored into price, home advantage, and how much of an impact sort of going behind closed doors will have to certain teams, COVID with big squads and what have you. I know we touched on that briefly, but do you have data that tells us how people should approach and who they should approach if we do indeed head down that route again, Dean?
Yeah, it really depends on league and it depends on clubs. So you'll have clubs with smaller grounds that create massive atmosphere and have that real home advantage. Burnley, so can you do it at Stoke on a cold Tuesday night is the kind of key phrase. And across Europe, you have those teams with Freiburg in Germany, Union Berlin in Germany, those teams where the crowd is on top of the pitch and it creates an amazing atmosphere that really throws teams when they go there to away games. So that can impact and decrease the home advantage. And what we've looked at is pre-lockdown, the original lockdown, then when they came back without fans, and then when they came back with fans afterwards. And what you'll see across the top 5 leagues is a real difference in what it happens league to league. And that will also come down to when you go away to clubs, they'll have different plans. Like some people have temporary changing rooms. Some people you'll be in the original changing room because they're far enough apart. Whereas if they're close and in the same building, suddenly you're getting changed, in a porter cabin down the street and you've got a 500-meter walk to the pitch. All those things can play on the mind of players and make them, slip out of their rhythm. And ultimately, footballers are people that thrive on consistency, thrive on routine. So when that routine is affected, and also if you play under a manager who screams and shouts a lot and there's no fans, then that can also have either a positive or a negative effect on the team, depending on their relationship with the manager. If you're playing right wing and you're managed by Conte and you're on his side, he's going to be in your ear, like screaming at you, managing you, telling you what to do. Whereas if you play under a manager that's quiet and there's no fans in the stadium, then, you may be able to just relax and play. One final thing before I give you some stats. Also, some clubs will have smaller home fans. So, teams that have lower attendances, if they suddenly have no fans, it may not impact them as much as someone like Dortmund, for example, that have that huge yellow wall.
Yeah.
70,000 people screaming, creating that atmosphere like Atletico Madrid, like we talked about on the last show.
Yeah.
And going from that to zero is a massive change. Whereas if the stadium's half empty, like a Manchester City, apologies, the prawn sandwich brigade, then that's where we have a bit of a problem. But yeah, in the Premier League, there was a decrease in home advantage and a decrease in the away, which returned. Sorry, my Christmas tree is trying to attack me here.
Man City fan, obviously.
Yeah, sending bad vibes, getting their voodoo doll and stabbing it, with my Christmas hat on. But yeah, decrease in home advantage and increase in away for the Premier League. In La Liga, there was a decrease in home advantage and totals, and it continued to drop post-return, so they took longer to get back into their rhythm. In the Bundesliga, there was an increase in the away output. This is goals I'm talking about here. And the home jumped on return, with the away returning to back it was before. So in Germany, the away teams done better, bigger outputs, more goals. When the fans came back, home teams were, fired up and loving life.
Yeah.
And the home numbers jumped, the whole home goals output jumped. And then the away returned, so that away advantage disappeared. In Ligue 1, there was an increase in the away. Home dropped slightly, and after there was a jump for home and away as they returned, but the away dropped slowly after the return of fans. And then in Serie A, it was the biggest out of everything. Massive increase in home and away during no fans, and then when the fans came back, still an increase with the majority of the statistics staying quite steady. But in Italy, everyone was saying, as soon as the fans go, then the goals are going to drop. But actually, that was the league where it exploded. And what you'll find in Italy, there's quite a lot of old stadiums that were used for the World Cup, used for other sporting events that are either far away from the pitch or they just don't have massive attendances in Italy. Even the big stadiums at Milan, at Juve, Juve against Sassuolo, I think they had 18 or 19,000 there because the ticket prices are still 80 or 90 euros despite people being impacted by COVID. So suddenly in Italy, you're going from half full stadiums to empty. The players were like, well, actually, let's just go out and have a great time. We've been stuck indoors for a couple of months. Let's go. So across the leagues, it will change. Use Bet It Right, go on the website, have a look at recency, have a look at last season. You can look at season 18-19, 19-20, 2021, and the current season. Compare the outputs of the teams, match them up. It may take a bit of research, it may take a bit of time, but if you can beat the bookies, bet better, then it's always worth it.
Yeah, well said. That's really interesting. BetItRight.com, BIR Insights and BIR Prompts on Twitter. But yeah, sign up to betterright.com. It is free to sign up. So all the information that we're talking about, that we use, that we see, that we analyse, that Dean talks about and puts into advice with his selections and fancies, that's available to you. And as I say, betitright.com, free to sign up. Do that, and you'll have a world of fun there, I'm sure. It's time now, Dean, for the best bet of the games we've spoken about. What do you think is the best bet?
So out of the 5 games we've spoke about today, I think the Burnley one against Everton really depends on the teams. I think the best bet this weekend, the most predictive bet, will be, for me, the one I'm going to take out of my Santa's sack wrapper and present as a beautiful little present to all our watchers is going to be Spurs and over 2.5 in the game Spurs versus Palace. Okay,
excellent stuff. Well, we will watch that with interest. Thank you very much for all your work in the year 2021. We're going to be back after the FA Cup round, so we'll have a couple of weeks off because it's FA Cup first week of January, all being well, without replays, scrap this year to avoid fixture congestion, and then we'll be back. As I say, we'll have mugs, T-shirts, prizes. We'll be back bigger and better in 2022. But I've really enjoyed the start to the Bet It Right show with you, Dean, and thank you so much for your efforts and work on it. Oh.
And thank you to all our followers, all our listeners, everyone that's joined us so far on this journey. It's one that we're just starting, but one that we're really looking forward to help you bet better, to help you enjoy data, to help you learn about football, not just the leagues that that we see every weekend on the TV, but leagues that maybe we've never seen before. But Ollie, I have a little question before we go for you, if that's okay.
Go on.
So right now I've got a Christmas hat and I've got a Christmas jumper and I have a Christmas tree. In the traditional Christmas sense, what else could I have built here maybe for the camera, for the viewers to see? What does Christmas say to you?
What could you have built for the viewers?
Yeah, what do we see people build at schools every now and again?
I mean, a sleigh, Santa.
Yeah. What else? Come on, the origin. We're talking origins.
Oh, a nativity and
okay, a nice nativity scene. And earlier on, you made a little challenge to me that the viewers saw. So in a nativity scene, there's 3 gifts given. What are those 3 gifts?
Frankincense.
No. Gold, frankel, and myrrh.
Very good. Very good. He's done it. Right at the end, as he said he would. This is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Dean always delivers. He's like the postman.
I'm a bit like Santa Claus, always deliver.
I went like the postman. It's Christmas, like Santa. Well said. I'm going to leave you with a Christmas cracker joke, Dean, all right?
Okay.
What do Santa's little helpers learn at school?
I don't know.
They learn the alphabet. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you to Dean. Thank you to tuning in. Tell all your friends about the Bet It Right show. Give it to them as a gift. Sign up to betitright.com. It's free, but it will be the best Christmas present you get this year. Thank you, and we'll see you back in the new year.